So recently I covered all of the information in regards to the popular MMOs situation, and it's a mess to say the least. He was arrested for domestic abuse, doxed people, has allegations of whipping his current girlfriend with a belt, but this information comes from his ex-girlfriend Eleni, who has spread misinformation about him in the past, and then we also have conflicting information from his ex-wife. So today I'm going to take all of this information, as well as some new information we've received since the last video, and try to paint a more clear picture of what could have happened. Let's start out with the 3 people he has been in relationships with. We have his ex-wife Jen of 10 years, his ex-girlfriend Eleni of 6 months, and his current girlfriend Liz of 3 months. Liz being the one involved in the domestic abuse case, which was then publicly revealed by Eleni, who didn't properly censor the document, so in the process of sharing that, she actually doxed PopularMMOs, aka Pat. In retaliation, Pat ended up doxing her, then quickly retracted it, but in the tweets he did confirm that the address is indeed his, which in addition to his mugshot, confirms that the domestic abuse arrest did take place. Unfortunately though, Eleni has been known to provide very inaccurate information in the past, as she has been exposed by Pat on his channel multiple times. So while the information about the domestic abuse coming straight from the police is accurate, anything else Eleni shares, like the alleged DMs from Liz, or the Twitter DMs between her and Pat, we have to take with a grain of salt. We then have Jen, who accidentally liked a tweet about Pat being an abuser, but she then clarified that she accidentally liked the tweet because she was looking into the situation and clicked like on one of the tweets she was looking at by accident. She then goes on to say that Pat has never been violent towards her in the 10 years that they've been together, but since they haven't been together for the last 2 years, and just like Eleni, she wasn't actually involved in the domestic abuse situation, we have to take what she says with a grain of salt as well. So essentially what we have to do to look at this properly is sweep everything Eleni and Jen is saying to the side and focus specifically on the police documents and the statements both Pat and Liz gave officially to the police. Last time we took a look at these documents, Pat and Liz's statements were censored, but since then we have obtained the uncensored versions. The full statements from the police read as follows. On May 16, 2020 at 0327 hours, I responded to this address in reference to a naked female banging on the front door. Upon arrival, I made contact with Patrick, who was standing outside of his residence. Patrick stated he and his girlfriend Elizabeth have been in an intimate relationship for approximately 3 months, and have resided together in the home for a few weeks. Tonight, Patrick stated that the two have been drinking, and got into an argument and she began to hit him, and break things in the home. Patrick stated Elizabeth got into her vehicle and left and was unsure where she went. Patrick stated Elizabeth is bipolar and acts this way often, however, he never calls the police. I read Patrick his Miranda rights via card. Post-Miranda, Patrick stated he and his girlfriend were having sexual intercourse, and she decided she no longer wanted to participate. He stated at that point she hit him and bit him. He stated he never touched her or hit her, even out of self-defense. Patrick invited me into his residence to observe the damage. I observed a broken lamp on the ground in the living room, and multiple chess pieces all on the floor. I observed a fresh scratch on Patrick's left shoulder, a scrape on his right shoulder, a bite mark on his left forearm, and a bite mark on his bicep. And then they share Elizabeth's point of view. It starts out with the officer saying, I responded to 911 First Avenue N in reference to making contact with Elizabeth. I contacted Elizabeth and read her Miranda rights via JSO issued Miranda card. Post-Miranda, Elizabeth stated that tonight she and her boyfriend Patrick were drinking at the residence. The two started to get intimate, and during intercourse, Elizabeth told Patrick that she wanted to stop. After telling Patrick to stop, Elizabeth stated that he got angry. He said that Patrick was on top of Elizabeth on the floor, and was picking her up and slamming her on the ground. Elizabeth stated that she bit and scratched Patrick to get away from him, then accidentally broke a lamp while running out the front door. Elizabeth ran outside naked and got into her vehicle and drove to 911 First Avenue N. I observe a red mark and scratch on Elizabeth's forearm, and abrasions of her knees. Rescue responded and bandaged the injuries. Based on the opposing stories and no independent witnesses, both subjects were placed under arrest for domestic battery and transported to the PDTF without incident. Both individuals refused to complete any of the domestic violence paperwork, or provide a written statement, or have their injuries photographed. Case cleared by arrest. Alright, now that we've heard the statements, let's cross-reference them and see if we can paint a more accurate picture of what actually went down. We know for sure straight from the police officers that there was a broken lamp, bite marks on Pat, and red marks on Liz, as well as Liz leaving the house naked. The consistent stories between Patrick and Liz is that they were both drinking, they got into an argument, and then Liz bit Patrick. But then after Patrick has read his Miranda rights, he adds that they were having sex sex and then she didn't want it and that's why she bit him. Liz also mentioning the same thing. The inconsistencies kick in is when Patrick states he never touched or hit her, even out of self-defense, and Liz says that she was slammed on the ground by Pat. Now, looking and taking in all of this information, I think this just looks really bad for Pat. We know that Elizabeth was harmed in some way because she had a red mark and scratch on her forearm, as well as abrasion of her knees. We can't prove that it came from Pat, but from her leaving the house naked and then driving over to 199 First Avenue, I don't really know how many opportunities she would have to get those type of scratches on her along the way. I guess in the car she could have like self-harmed herself by like bashing her knees and scratching herself to make up a story. I mean, Pat did say she was bipolar, so maybe that's part of it. I'm not really an expert on people who are bipolar, so that is definitely a possibility. But I personally think the more realistic possibility is that Pat did hurt her in some way. I mean, why else would she run out of the house naked? You'd have to either be crazy or in actual immediate danger in order to do something like that. And we do know that she came out of the house naked because that was also confirmed by the police. Her frantically leaving the house also lines up with the broken lamp and what Pat initially said to the police. We also have the fact that they both refused to file any domestic violence paperwork, which either means Liz is protecting Pat or Pat is protecting Liz. But considering Liz immediately admitted to the police that she did bite Pat, while Pat denies ever hitting her despite the marks being there, I have a feeling that Liz is being pressured into protecting Pat. But that's just my opinion based on the information we have so far. Prior to the situation, I didn't even know who PopularMMOs was, so I don't really have any personal reason to criticize Pat or defend him. I'm just kind of giving my opinion based on what has been said. And unfortunately for Pat, I just think the current information does not paint him in a positive light, as ever since this came out, he's been very vague in addressing the situation, saying that the main reason he hasn't elaborated on this is because it's too complicated and he doesn't want to hurt anyone else with his response. And based on what we now know with the police reports, it seems like if he does come out with this story, just like in his statement to the police, he would push all the blame onto Liz in order to defend himself. But as he stated in that tweet, he's going to stay silent in order to protect her. Instead, he's mostly been tweeting about Eleni, who is the main person publicizing a lot of this information. While editing this video, he even tweeted out, "Since Eleni leaked my address, someone tried to put my house illegally on the market to sell it. Thanks, Eleni. You are a great person." The Marvelous Maca responds, "Plot twist. It was Eleni trying to get you to move in." Pat then responds, "Ew." So yeah, those set of new tweets along with the previous tweets. His MO at the moment seems to be taking attention off of the domestic abuse arrest and instead highlighting how Eleni is a bad person in his opinion. Which, to be fair, Eleni could very well be the psychotic person that Pat claims her to be, but as I said earlier in the video, you can completely remove Eleni from the situation, and the fact still remains that him and Liz were arrested for domestic abuse. But that's just my opinion on it. As I said earlier, I was only introduced to PopularMMOs through this situation, so if any of you guys have some better insight on what possibly could be happening here, I would love to hear your opinion in the comment section below. It would definitely be preferable for Pat to be innocent here, so if you could give some reasoning to why that would be the case, I would love to hear it. And if there's any more updates on this situation, I'll be sure to let you guys know, so don't forget to subscribe with notifications on. Thank you so much to my channel members for supporting the channel, in particular Scrubby, who's donated $100 a month. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another video.